London. 1750. The air is thick with the sulphurous stench of coal smoke, the rot of wet horse manure, and the sharp metallic tang of a coming storm. A cold, relentless drizzle begins to fall. It turns the cobblestones into a slick, treacherous mosaic. In this era, if you are a man of status, you do not walk in the rain. To do so is a confession of poverty. It is a sign that you cannot afford the shelter of a hackney coach. A sound breaks through the rhythmic clatter of carriage wheels. The wet thwack of a rotten cabbage hitting a man's shoulder. A spray of black mud from a passing wheel. The crowd isn't mocking a thief or a criminal. They are jeering at a man holding a strange, skeletal contraption of oiled silk and whalebone. This was a declaration of war. A war not against the clouds, but against the very definition of British masculinity. For 3,000 years, the umbrella was never meant for the common man. It certainly wasn't meant for the rain. In the scorched sands of ancient Egypt, these portable roofs were celestial symbols. They represented the vault of the heavens. They were held exclusively over the heads of those deemed divine. To stand beneath one was to claim a rank higher than the earth itself. By the time the concept reached the West, it had shed its divinity but kept its elitism. In the 18th century, the parasol was a delicate, feminine accessory. A frivolous French import designed to protect porcelain skin from the sun. For a British man to carry one was unthinkable. It was seen as effeminate, a sign of weakness, distinctly un-British. Real men, the social code dictated, braved the elements with nothing but a tricorn hat and a stout heart. Then came Jonas Hanway. He was a man of trade. A traveler who had seen the world beyond the narrow fog of London. In the tea houses of Persia, he had watched men use sturdy umbrellas to navigate the elements with dignity. He returned to England and looked at his fellow citizens. They were soaked to the bone, shivering, trapped by the predatory pricing of carriage drivers. He decided he had seen enough. One morning, when the clouds hung low and heavy over the Thames, Hanway stepped out of his front door. In his hand, he gripped the handle of a large, somber silk umbrella. He didn't wait for a carriage. He simply opened the device with a distinctive crackle of tensioned fabric. He began to walk. He was a lone, dry island in a sea of drenched, angry Londoners. The reaction was instantaneous. Street urchins hissed. Gentlemen in the coffee houses pressed their faces to the glass, laughing at the ridiculous Frenchman in their midst. But the most violent reaction came from the hackney coachmen. To them, Hanway wasn't just a fool. He was a threat to their monopoly. If men could walk through the rain and remain dry, the carriage industry would collapse. The harassment became a daily ritual. Coachmen would deliberately veer their horses into the gutter. They sent a wall of filthy water over Hanway's legs. They shouted insults, questioning his courage and his gender. Yet every single day for 30 years the umbrella man appeared. He became a living landmark of ridicule. A man whose stubbornness was as reliable as the London fog. The tension reached a breaking point on a narrow lane near Pall Mall. A coachman, fueled by a mixture of gin and professional spite, decided to escalate the conflict. He drove his carriage directly at Hanway. He intended to pin the effeminate rebel against a brick wall. Most men would have dropped their belongings and fled. Hanway did not. He planted his feet on the greasy stones. As the horses bore down on him, he gripped the heavy, reinforced handle of his umbrella. In those days they were built with the sturdiness of a club. With a calculated, icy fury, he used the frame to beat the coachman back. He defended his patch of pavement with the very object that had made him a target. In that moment, the umbrella ceased to be a fashion statement. It became a shield. Decades passed. Hanway grew gray. His stride slowed. But his umbrella remained a constant. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the city began to change. The younger generation began to notice something pragmatic. While their fathers were catching the ague from damp clothes, Hanway was dry. While they spent their inheritance on short carriage rides, Hanway was saving a fortune. Hanway was healthy. Hanway was free. By the time Jonas Hanway passed away in 1786, the ridicule had turned into a whisper of curiosity. A few years later, the whisper became a roar. By the turn of the century, the Hanway method had won. The heavy, silken bone structures were replaced by lighter frames. The streets of London, once a battlefield of class and gender, were now a shifting sea of black umbrellas. This is the true legacy of Hanway's struggle. It isn't found in the fabric or the frame. It is found in the way we move through our world today. Before the umbrella was democratized, the city belonged to the rich who rode, and the poor who suffered. There was no middle ground. You were either sheltered by wealth or punished by nature. Hanway accidentally invented pedestrian culture. By popularizing the umbrella, he gave the individual the power to reclaim the sidewalk. He broke the monopoly of the carriage. He allowed the middle class to navigate the urban sprawl on their own terms, at their own pace. The umbrella was the world's first successful piece of personal transport technology. It was a device that changed the very scale of our cities. Think of that the next time you feel the wind tugging at your grip during a storm. You aren't just holding a tool to keep your hair dry. You are holding a piece of revolutionary hardware. A symbol of a 30-year war fought by a man who refused to be bullied by a carriage driver or a social norm. We often think that history is made by kings. We think it is made by conquerors. But sometimes, history is shaped by a single, stubborn man walking down a rainy street, holding his ground, refusing to let the world tell him it's unmanly to stay dry. The umbrella didn't just change how we look at the clouds. It changed how we look at each other. It proved that a little bit of silk and a lot of grit can bring an entire industry to its knees. It gave the streets back to the people. Stay dry, my friends. And remember, every object you touch has a scar from the battle it fought to exist.